Welcome back to another episode of Inside Badger Hoops. Ira Bowman, JC Rock here with you, as always, here on Watch It Snow TV. The Badgers, both men's and women's, only played one game last week at Utah State Eastern last Thursday. It was a sweep at Price for the Snow College basketball teams, getting 2 wins. The women won, getting their 4th straight win, and the men won, getting their 18th straight win, And we'll go ahead and start there. That is the tied for the longest winning streak in program history. Coach May, in his 3rd season, is having one of the best seasons in Snow College men's basketball history.
Yeah, no doubt. And to do it in so late in this season as well, it's just been really showing the resiliency and the heart that this team has when they're on the court as well. And it really tells me that when they're not on the court on practice or in game, that they're really taking advantage of the rest time. They're really, trying to get back in the swing of things, really trusting the process that Andrew May has inserted in them. And it's really just paid off in such a big way.
Yep, the Badgers moved to 25-1 overall, 11-0 in conference, 8-0, 10-0 on the road now, 12-0 on the road now, and they do it winning 83-73 against Utah State Eastern in a game that at one point looked like Snow was going to run away with it.
Yeah, it really did. As I mentioned, Snow is just really one of those teams that can really never count out, no matter how much of a lead you have, they're always going to be a huge threat regardless of where it is during the game. So I think for Snow, they just really have to have faith in themselves, have faith in their teammates and everything. And so for the rest of this conference and the rest of this season in general, teams really have to be aware that you got to keep them down as much as you can. Otherwise, they're just going to come back and hit you even harder.
Yeah, well, the Badgers were in control of this game. It was them giving up a lead that what led to this being tied at 39 at halftime. The Badgers were up 34-16 with about 10 minutes left in the first half, and then gave up a 23-5 run to end the first half. It was tied at 39 at halftime, but the Badgers were able to outscore the Eagles 44-34 in the second half on the backs of Isaac Garrett.
Yep, no doubt. And Isaac Garrett, he really had an incredible performance, especially in that second half. No doubt. It looked like he had his struggles in the first half, but at the second half, he's really one of those guys that can really come back after the struggles and everything and perform even better than we've seen all year. And this game was really the true evidence of that, of what kind of player he can be when he gets in the zone.
Yep. And he only had 5 points in the first half, but really a lot of players struggled on both teams in the first half. And I think part of it was because there was an hour-and-a-half delay for this game. The game didn't start till 8:30 p.m., and it was scheduled to start at 7. That was due to the snowstorm that happened this past weekend. And then, so the referees couldn't make it to the game on time because they were going very slow in the snow, driving safe. Gary was telling me that the bus and him, when they drove over there, were going about 30 miles, 35 miles an hour in the snow. So it was a bad storm, but thankfully the refs were able to make it. They got the game started at about 8:30. So the first 5 minutes of this game, everybody was pretty cold, and then Chance Trujillo hit 4 straight threes, and the Badgers jumped out to a lead. And McCaden Adams hit a 3, and it looked like the Badgers were going to run away with it before giving up that 23-5 run in the last 10 minutes of the first half.
Yeah, no doubt the MVP of that run by Utah State Eastern was no doubt Sebastian Rosado. He also had 14 points in that first half, which was the same as Trujillo. They were basically mirroring each other in that first half.
Yeah, they were.
If we're being honest here, 14 first half points, as I mentioned. He went 4 for 5 from the three-point line, very close. But I think another key to Rosado's success in that first half was his 4 assists on top of that.
Yep. I couldn't agree more, and he was a big part of their offense in the second half. The Eagles got off to a 5-point lead at the beginning of the first half, but the Badgers would fight back and forth and eventually gain a 7-point lead and then gain a 10-point lead. And the Eagles would get it back down to 5 with about 2 minutes left, 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. And then Isaac Garrett scored the last 8 points of the game for the Badgers and really just put the team on his back there late to pull out that win.
Yep, no doubt. It's really just living up to his character, not just his character alone. Obviously he's the guy that's always going to finish as strong as he can, but the team in general really rallied around him, and that's another great strength of Isaac Garrett, is that he is a true leader through and through. and it really just shows the resiliency he has in the game. No matter what time it is, he never says die, and he's always going to finish as strong as he can.
Yep, that's why he's the king of the court this week. He played phenomenally well. He's also the Scenic West Athletic Conference Player of the Week after his performance on Thursday. Finished with 23 points, 18 of which came in the second half. Had a double-double with 12 rebounds. Shot 8 for 8 from the free throw line in the second half after only shooting 1 for 4 in the first half from the free throw line. So really stepped it up there. And then out-rebounded Utah State Eastern alone in the second half. What was it, 9-8?
Yep, 9-8. He out-rebounded them completely. And the impressive thing about that is that it was really on the defensive side on the court. If I remember, 6 of those rebounds in the second half were on the defensive end on that. So offensive end.
6 offensive rebounds. Utah State Eastern only had 2 offensive rebounds in the second half.
Yeah, my mistake right there. I mean, those offensive rebounds, they come in the clutch when you need them most, especially when you're looking for second chance points late in the second half as well, which is the situation the Badgers were in. So Isaac Garrett just making an impact regardless of what kind of play he's making, whether it's scoring points and from the fast break and transition offense or getting those hard-to-get rebounds, going against guys like Xavier Edmonds, who was hogging the rebounds the last game that we saw them playing in. So I think in this game, it's another easy choice. It's Isaac Garrett.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He played very, very well. And Isaac Finlinson, I'm not really going to say he struggled, but he didn't shoot very many shots. Had finished with 10 points. Chance Trujillo finished with 16 after having 14 of them in the first half. So some pretty balanced scoring. Mark Brown Jr. also had 9 points in this game for the Badgers. So some pretty balanced scoring overall. And it was a little bit of a scary game to watch in the second half, but Garrett really put the team on his back there late.
Yeah, no doubt. And I have to correct myself. I said Xavier Edmonds plays for Utah State Eastern. He actually plays for Salt Lake Community College, so my apologies.
I thought you were referencing the Salt Lake game because what
I probably should have specified,
what
obviously.
What you said did happen in the Salt Lake game. Xavier Edmonds was very, very played very well in that game, and Isaac Garrett, their battle was a lot of fun to watch, and they rebounded and fought hard. But yeah, in the Utah State Eastern game, Isaac Garrett was really able to dominate the glass.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving over to the women's side, back when they played this past Thursday, the Lady Badgers are on a 4-game win streak after dropping 4 straight conference games. They moved in 16-9 overall, 5-5 in the conference, and move with this win half a game ahead of Utah State Eastern. So 1 game up in the loss column, half a game. Utah State Eastern does own the tiebreaker because they beat Snow twice. But the Lady Badgers get that win, move to 5-5, and the Eagles fall to 5-6. So they're battling for that 4th spot right there in the Scenic West women's standings. The final score to this one, 45-32. Lady Badgers get a victory.
Yeah, and the key takeaways for this game for me was, obviously the game started on time.
Yes,
which tells me all the players they're ready to go and everything. So it really worked into Badgers' advantage, obviously, and the fact that they were very defensively focused as well. Like, they were locked in on defense. They were shutting down everything. One of the key things that we talked about last week going into this game is that they had to shut down Scrivener, which is exactly what they did, held her to 4 points, and those 4 points came in the 4th quarter alone. So obviously the Badgers just locked in on defense, and they did not give up a lot of open shots, and they also forced the Eagles to miss a lot of open shots inside the paint.
Yeah. And that was all mostly in the first half. The Eagles started really, really slow, and then the second half was very back and forth. In the first quarter, the Badgers outscored the Eagles. I believe it was 15-9.
Yep.
And then at the end of the second quarter, the Badgers outscored them 8-2 in the second quarter. So Coach Zoo's team only gave up 11 points in 20 minutes of play. That is a masterclass of a defensive performance.
Yep, no doubt. And a lot of those defensive plays really transitioned into their offense, which led to that outscoring in each of those quarters. But I really want to emphasize how impressive it is to only holding a team that put up 51 points in you in the last game and only holding them to 2 points in 1 quarter alone. Yep. It's just an outstanding defensive performance. Very impressive.
And I mean, we've talked about how this team Snow College has had games where they have a quarter in which they only score 6 or 8 or 9 points, right? Single-digit scoring quarters. We've talked about how that's been a problem.
That's been the struggles thus
far.
But
when you score 8 points in a quarter but only give up 2, it's not really as much of a problem.
Yeah.
Because you're able to hold them to only 1 basket.
Right.
Now, in the second half, it was a little bit of a different story. The Badgers led at halftime of this game and then gave up 11 points in the third quarter, but also scored 11 points in the third quarter. I mentioned it was very back and forth. The second half was very even. Both teams scored 11 in the third quarter, as I just mentioned, and then in the fourth quarter, Snow College outscored the Eagles 11-10.
Yeah, and the thing that really made the difference in that second half for them is that we've seen the Badgers in the past, once the other team gets momentum, they have a really hard time responding offensively. The second half was just a completely different story. Like, they held on to their lead, and any momentum that the Eagles had, the Badgers either shut it down on defense or they responded right back on offense.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't really a high-scoring game for the Badgers either, only scoring 45 points. Coach Zoo's team only shot 31% from the field and 33% from three, but shot 70% from the free throw line as a team. And then when we talk about Utah State Eastern's shooting, I believe they were 2 for 27 from three or 3 for 27 from three in this game. So very, very low three-point percentage for Utah State Eastern. And the Badgers went 3 for 10.
Yeah,
3 for 9.
3 for 9, somewhere around there. Yeah, the Badgers aren't really accustomed to shooting very many threes. I think that's definitely going to be something that's going to change, especially with all the film study that other teams are going to do, watching these recent games. They're going to realize the strength. So I think the Badgers are definitely going to have to make some adjustments here in the crunch time of conference play and really try to open up the horizons of hitting wide open threes.
Yeah, so as I've got it here, 2 for 27 is what Utah State Eastern shot from the three-point line. The Badgers went 3 for 9. So made one more on a lot less attempts, which gives the Badgers a lot more possessions to get shots at the rim in a game like this where a basket was hard to come by.
Yeah, definitely. So Utah State Eastern, it's just coming down to not making your shots as well. I mean, 2 for 27, that's just abysmal, whether it's a men's game or a women's game. You know, like it's just an abysmal percentage overall. I'm not going to do the math right now in my head because I can't do that. But, you know, just an abysmal percentage, obviously. 7.4%.
That's what that is.
Just an outright struggle from the three-point range. But Utah State Eastern, I do think they're a very strong team overall. Definitely a team that the Badgers are not going to want to underestimate in future games. But overall, just an abysmal performance from the Eagles, and all credit goes to the Badgers on the defensive end and being able to, once again, go in the transition offense and respond with whatever momentum the Eagles had.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was not the best game to watch, but it was a good, tough, gritty win for Coach Zoo's team, which is something that they haven't quite had yet this season. So it was a big confidence booster and should be a big confidence booster, especially for players like Sydney Smith, who's this week's queen at the court, who led the game in scoring with 11 points.
Yeah, and in terms of those 11 points, I mean, it's really just solid numbers when you look at it. I mean, 4 for 7 from the field, that's obviously really solid. 3 for 4 from the free throw line. She also had 6 big rebounds in that game, and she had, I think this is a career high, 4 steals in this game.
I would have to check about that career high, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Yep, no doubt. And the biggest thing that I really took away from this time from Sydney Smith is that she dropped these stats in 13 minutes of total play.
Most of which in the first half.
Yeah, exactly. Most of which in the first half. So it really just tells me what would she have done if she had more minutes had she not gotten into foul trouble.
Yeah, Sydney Smith had 3 fouls at halftime, got her 4th foul in the third quarter. Coach Zoo elected not to play her the rest of the game and let some of the starters, finish it out, which had worked. The Lady Badgers got the win, and as we've mentioned, but Sydney Smith played very well. In that first quarter, when the Badgers scored 15 points, Sydney Smith had 7 of them, I believe. It was she had got fouled when she came in, went 1 for 2 from the free throw line, and then immediately on the next 2 possessions down the floor on offense for the Badgers, got and ones and made the free throws. So 7 points on 3 possessions for Sydney Smith right as she entered the game in that first quarter, and then later she continued to get some timely buckets for the Badgers, and that's how she was able to really impact this game offensively.
Yep, no doubt. And also coming off the bench the way that she has throughout the year, really accepting that role and excelling in that role. Like, she's really starting to be one of those players that teams are going to look at and watch out for this woman player. Like, she's really a hot hand coming out of the bench, and obviously she's just looking to make an impact whenever she can.
Yeah. Badgers out-rebounded the Eagles 46-32. So the Eagles had just as many points. We talked about this yesterday when we were prepping. 32 rebounds and 32 points for the Eagles. So the Badgers had more rebounds than the Eagles did points, which really puts into perspective how bad how good the Badgers defense was and how bad the Eagles shot from the field.
Yeah, the Eagles offense just could not get anything open, really. Like, the Badgers just shut them down, really, from all over the court, whether it's in the paint or around the perimeter, which we've seen the Badgers really excel at in the recent games in conference play. Just seeing them just make it all work, both defensively and offensively in this one. It's just really incredible to see going against as I mentioned before, a really strong Eagles team.
Yep. Malia Elliott, the smallest player on the floor, led the Badgers in rebounds with 7. Sydney Smith had 6. Ayanna Bay also had 6 rebounds in 33 minutes for her. Also finished with 5 points. Brooke Pennington was Lily Suguturaga was the second leading scorer in this game for Coach Zoo's team. She had 7. For the Eagles, it was Ellie Esplin, who was the only other player to reach double digits, but only hit 10. As we move on and look ahead to this coming week, the men's Badgers team and the women's will both travel to Colorado Northwestern on Thursday and Salt Lake on Saturday. So, JC, let's take a look. For the women's team at Colorado Northwestern. Colorado Northwestern has not won a conference game yet this season. The Badgers won both of the last games, 89-53 at CNCC and then 68-57 here at home. Double-digit wins, both of them. What do you expect to see in this third matchup?
Yeah, so in this third matchup, the fact that they're going on the road tells me that they're really well prepared because, as you mentioned, the first time they were at CNCC, they won 89-53, which is the largest scoring margin in comparison to their second game. So the biggest keys for this one is obviously build off the momentum from the last 2 games, considering that they're both wins and you're really hot-handed in the midst of a 4-game winning streak. I'll definitely say stay consistent on offense. Look to at least 2 players in double-digit scoring. I would look to finish with that in this game. I definitely want more scoring production from the guard position. I think Pennington and Elliott have sort of taken a step back in the recent games in terms of their scoring production, but I'm expecting them to really explode in this one, as I also expect Hadley Richens coming off the bench to really have a big game in this one. Limit the turnovers again. They're averaging 20 turnovers officially on the season, so definitely want to limit those and limit the points on the turnovers from the other team as well. And you want to finish through the contact as well, and don't make any easy shots at the rim.
Yeah.
Don't miss any easy shots at the rim. Excuse me.
Saw some missed open layups in the Utah State Eastern game. Saw a lot of contested shots at the rim that didn't fall for the Lady Badgers. So that's something that if they can do that, they should definitely be able to pull out this win pretty easily.
Yeah.
Now on the men's side, the men's team won both games by 14 points. The first one at Colorado Northwestern, 79-65. The second one, 98-84 here at home. So the Badgers scored more but gave up more here in Ephraim. And part of that was because Tyler Christensen went off and had 31 points here against the Badgers. And just this past weekend at CSI made 8 threes and had 32 points.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's just basically going to lead me into my keys right here. You got to limit Tyler Christensen to under 20 points, I would say, is the goal for the Badgers going into this one. Obviously, he's got the hot hand, like you mentioned, dropping 32 at CSI and making 8 3-pointers. That's definitely going to be something that's going to have the Badgers looking at him and analyzing his play in the film room. But other keys to this game, I got to say, can't give up those large scoring runs like we've seen in the past. Obviously, a 23-5 run at Utah State Eastern doesn't help. Don't settle for those contested threes, and don't look for the bad shots as well. Don't really give in. Like, settle your offense down. Really take a second, see what the defense is showing you, and find the wide open man.
Yeah,
and of course,
I think I think that's really important because at Utah State Eastern, Chance hit 4 threes, and then McCaden Adams hit a 3, and Coleman hit a 3, and so everybody was just kind of getting into that shooting groove, and then all of a sudden everybody cooled off, and the Badgers were still shooting, those shots that are normally pretty good shots, but some of them were heavily contested as well. Utah State Eastern's defense stepped up a little bit. So the Badgers, I'm not saying they were forcing a lot of bad shots, but they can't just start settling for threes even when they were going in like that. And that's what gave up that run, and that's why I think that's important.
Yeah, no doubt. And in terms of their defense, I would say don't give up a lot of open threes and limit the turnovers to single digits, because if I remember right, they had 12 in their game against Utah State Eastern.
I believe it was 11.
11. So yeah, I definitely want to keep the turnovers to a single digit in this game. But overall, if you just stick to these keys and focus on what you've done so well in the past, it's going to be another, I would say, double-digit victory against CNCC.
And if the Badgers get this win on Thursday against Colorado, it would be the 26th win of the season for Coach May, which would tie a school record. The most wins in a season for Snow College is 26. The most recent being 26 and 13 in the 2021-2022 season, I believe. And that was also the last time that the Badgers made the national tournament, if I remember correctly. So that would give Coach May the ability to tie the all-time wins in a season for the Badgers. And then on Saturday, if Coach May and his team go 2-0, they would then break that record with 27 wins and move to 27-1 if this weekend goes as smoothly as everybody here at Snow hopes.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about something that motivates your players to do, I mean, setting a school record and obviously making history in terms of an entire season. Obviously, you're the #1 team. You're obviously looking to make the national tournament. But I think the Badgers right now are dead set on breaking those school records in terms of the win column.
Well, and when I was just talking to, I just got done interviewing Coach May for a news article about how with this 11th win in the conference and with a couple of losses from CSI, the Badgers are Scenic West Athletic Conference regular season champions, so they will officially host the conference tournament, the Region 18 tournament here in Ephraim. Unknown who the third and fourth team will be will be both CSI and North Idaho, Salt Lake and North Idaho. But because their records are so close, North Idaho right now at 5-7, Salt Lake at 6-6, and North Idaho owns the tiebreaker over Salt Lake after getting a win at Salt Lake and then beating Salt Lake at home this past week. So in terms of those standings, it's looking like it will be 1 Snow, 2 CSI, but that third and fourth spot
is up for grabs.
Completely undecided right now. Yeah, it's completely up for grabs right now. But Snow College has a chance to really push Salt Lake down, maybe into that 4th spot if they get that win on Saturday. But let's preview the women's game first, JC. So what do you think that Coach Zhu's team will need to do in this second game against Salt Lake? They've only played once so far. It was the first game of the conference regular season for Coach Zhu and her team. The Badgers lost and 84-52, so not a close game.
No.
But we've seen a lot of improvement. The Lady Badgers on a 4-game winning streak, like we've been talking about. They are improving both offensively and defensively. So playing another time at Salt Lake Community College before playing Salt Lake here at home, there's a little bit to that there. Well, so what do you think Coach Zhu is really going to drill into her team this week?
I think the biggest thing that Coach Zhu is going to drill into the minds of her players is the fact that, that game did happen and we lost by over 30. We lost by 32 points.
Over
no
a
doubt.
month ago. It was January 2nd, I believe.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about in terms of that. That was at the beginning of conference play. In my opinion, Coach Zhu realizes how settled her players are in the conference and how used to they are of the momentum and the speed of which conference play is. So I think in this matchup, it's going to be a lot closer. But again, the main keys for this game for me, limit to turnovers, again, to under 20, because you cannot give Salt Lake City Community College a lot of momentum in this game. You cannot allow double-digit scores in this game. They did a tremendous job of limiting the Stars of Utah State Eastern in their recent game. So I think they're really going to lock in on the main stars of Salt Lake City Community. And don't give up a lot of threes. Salt Lake City shot 13 of 24 from three-point in that last game. And then they also have to limit bench scoring. And in terms of that, the Snow College bench, they need to step up huge in this one. So your Sydney Smiths, your Hadley Richens, they're really going to have to step up in this game.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we talked about it yesterday, and we've talked about how the Badgers played against Utah State Eastern. Coach Zhu's team is going to need to come in with a little bit more fire at Salt Lake Community College. Now, at that point in the season, Salt Lake was ranked a lot higher than they were this past week. But now, after losing at North Idaho, the Bruins have fallen out of the top 25 in the women's rankings after being the last team in the Scenic West Conference to be in those rankings. So they've completely fallen out. Southern Idaho is receiving votes, and they're right outside, which would be at the 26th spot. And now, I mean, the women's conference standings has completely flip-flopped to what it was last week.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
North Idaho, after getting 2 wins, jumped up to first place. And Salt Lake, let me find it real quick. Salt Lake is now 7-4 in conference, so North Idaho is now 9-3 after 2 wins this past week, and CSI is 8-4. Salt Lake 7-4. Snow, with the win over Utah State Eastern, like I mentioned, moved to 5-5, while the Eagles are 5-6. So Badgers are up 1 game in the loss column, or a half a game up on the Eagles. So that 4th spot in the women's side is also up for grabs, just like how it is on the men's side.
Yep, and basically the only difference in terms of that is obviously Snow is one of those teams up for the 4th spot right now.
Yep. But Lady Badgers have a chance to gain a step on Utah State Eastern this week with both a win at Colorado, and if they can pull out a win at Salt Lake Community College, that would be a huge step for Coach Zhu's team this season.
Yep, no doubt.
Now, on the men's side, we talked about it a little bit. Conference standings on the line for Salt Lake, whilst the Badgers have already clinched mathematically the regular season championship, being 11-0. CSI already has 4 losses and wouldn't be able to tie Snow at all, even if we lost out. So with this game, Salt Lake is going to come out with a little bit of fire, especially after losing last time here in Ephraim in overtime.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, 91-86 in overtime. I think in that game it was just came down to the Badgers again finishing as strong as they can. And I think that the biggest key going into this one is shut down Xavier Edmonds. In that first game they played, he was ejected for a foul and everything and acting a little bit out of line. But we saw how much of a threat he can be when he gets in the rhythm and is playing the full game. If I remember, he played just about 40 minutes in regulation outside of overtime.
I think he played 40 minutes in the game overall.
Overall, including overtime.
With overtime included, he played a full 40 minutes of basketball and had 38 points.
38 points, yep. 37 points, actually.
37.
I'm just looking. Yep, dropped a double-double. I mean, we saw what he's capable of. 37 points, 14 rebounds. So this is no doubt the biggest threat going into this game, especially where he has the home court advantage.
Yep.
And building off the momentum of that last game, he is definitely looking for revenge. And the Badgers, they really have to keen on him defensively and watch out for him on defense as well. Score against him as much as you can and find wide open shots when he can't get a nice paint shot against him.
Yep. And I mean, in that first game that Snow played against Salt Lake, the Badgers gave up 11 quick points in 8 minutes to Xavier Edmonds before he left the game. And that continued here. So following the trend, Xavier Edmonds is due for another big game against Snow. So how can Coach May really scheme up ways to shut him down and scheme up offense for the Badgers to shoot better in the second half? Because here at home, the Badgers shot 19% from the field in the second half, and we're still able to pull it out in overtime. So Coach May's team going to really have to do a lot better job shooting the ball in the second half. And honestly, shooting the ball overall, the Badgers this season have played obviously 11 conference games. 7 of those conference games, the Badgers have been outshot from the field. So they've shot a worse field goal percentage than their opponent, and yet still won all of those games, 5 of which were on the road.
Yeah. I mean, like, in terms of that, I think that the Badgers, they really cannot, like, underestimate this opponent. Like, obviously, you're not winning by a huge margin against them, so especially on the road in this one, you don't want to give up any sort of momentum. Don't show any struggles when you travel and have that sort of fatigue factor go against you. So just come out with some fire in this one and really just finish strong as you can. Yep.
I couldn't agree more. So that will do it for us here once again on Inside Badger Hoops. Join us next week on Watch It Snow TV. Ira Bowman, JC Rockhill signing off this week. Can't wait to talk to you guys next week.